We're going to talk about Valeera, one of the premier gank assassins, super OP in the right situation. And that situation's about 1 in 1,000 games. Like, she's not really super meta, and there's a good reason why. And the other thing is like, you have to hit your Q. Hitting your Q is paramount to success with Valeera. Think Medivh. You miss your Q, things get very awkward. Because now all of a sudden you don't have Q cooldown. But you at least have other buttons that do stuff. You can portal, you can protect, and you can ranged auto attack. As a Valeera, so much of your damage and so much of your functionality is baked into your Q. Thus making Valeera a very difficult hero because there's only one build that can really function around it. Valeera is known for killing people and staying on top of them. You miss your Q, the rest of everything else is very subpar. It's hard to live for a long time in those fights. So we're going to talk about the build to run and, well, hopefully hit your Q because that's how this works, okay? So with this, one thing you have to understand is your D. Your D opens up 3 new abilities. Your blind, silence, and damage an enemy over time. You can see stealth. Stun, blind, and damage an enemy, or heavily damage an enemy and reduce their armor. 98% of the time, you're opening up with the silence. Doesn't matter, like, if I'm playing against the Zul'jin, if I'm playing against an Artanis, maybe. As an Artanis, I'm probably just pressing Q anyways in the middle of that situation. If I'm playing against an Illidan, I'm probably going to open up with my blind. Not always, but I'm going to try and open up with my blind. Having a silence for an extended period of time is very strong. So a lot of it is, how do I play Valeera? Do I walk into a fight cloaked, or do I walk into a fight mounted, cloak, and then press my button? Both of them are generally accepted, but if somebody reveals you while you're cloaked, you go to use an ability and you're not cloaked, you still have an 8-second cooldown now before you can do that. So walking up to a fight, mounted, flanking, invisible, all of those options, you have to think outside of the box. If I keep getting revealed before I ever engage and I can't use my opener, I'm in a lot of trouble. So with that, you need to figure out, do I need to get into a fight, press D, and then use my abilities, or do I come in cloaked on the flank and try and do things? Normally, you're going to try and come in cloaked and flank, but that's not always going to be the case. There's certain characters that are going to counter you, certain things that can reveal you. If I'm playing a Johanna, I'm just going to turn and blind you. Like, I don't want, like, your opener is the whole reason that you can do anything. So if I can take that away from you, that's why she's so easily countered. Once you're out, once you've used your opener, it's all about what abilities do I use. You can see every 3 points, or 1 point, you get a combo point every time you land an ability or use an ability and hit somebody. 1 point, you get 85, 2 points, 170, 3 points, 255. 255, you're going to be using your E as your finisher. So it's like, I'm using an ability, and then I'm going to use my E to damage you. I'm going to drop that, and then I'm going to go back to building that up. So what an early combo looks like is using my D, pressing E on the target that I want. Then I'm going to press Q, then I'm going to press Q, and that's how I'm going to do that. So that gives me my opener, it gives me my 2 stacks, so now I'm at 3, and then I'm going to use my eviscerate. So a lot of that is, I'm going to E, Q, Q, E. D first, so that you have your opener. And that's how a lot of it works. So how does that really function, and how do you build into that? That's going to be the name of the game, because all of that is. You should almost never, and I mean never, use your W in the middle of a fight. You can use this for wave clear. That's about it. This is not a lot of damage. AoE damage is not your forte. You are a single target damage dealer, and you're trying to kill people. You don't do that there. Your Q is going to do some damage to that single target damage. But the main part is, hitting your Q means you reset the cooldown on this, and you can use it again, reducing that cooldown by 1 second. So it's opener, Q, auto, E in the middle of that. And you're going to kill a lot of people. We're going to tell you how, okay? At level 1, combat readiness is really good. There's almost always going to be a pretty good auto attacker on most teams. Combat readiness, you can almost never go wrong with this. Vigor and subtlety are probably the least picked of these, and crippling poison is kind of the next highest priority. meaning that when I go in, I'm going to cloak, I'm going to activate this, and my next damaging ability and subsequent abilities within 4 seconds are going to slow targets by 20% for 4 seconds, meaning that it's going to be a lot easier to start hitting those Qs. If they're slowed by 20%, I should already be trying to hit the Q on them, but it's very difficult to stay on top of a target if they're not slowed, but it's still possible. If they're slowed, of course, it's going to be easier. So both of these are really good. Combat Readiness, Crippling Poison. If they have a Zul'jin, if they have a Raynor, I'm looking at these. It reduces up to 3 charges. But if they have a Tassadar, probably not as good. A Lucio, probably not as good. Those things attack 4 times per second. So it doesn't really help me when I lose all of those charges from one character. Still might be okay, but just remember to keep an eye on that. Level 1, it's all about using the defensive or the offensive option and understanding which one you need. The other ones just aren't there. The Vigor talent, getting more maximum energy, you don't need this because the way that you're going to play in the build that you're going, you don't really need it. You don't need it at all. We're going to talk about that now because at level 4, it's all about Relentless Strikes. Reduces the energy cost of Sinister Strike by 15. So if you're using that, you've got 30 energy, you're pumping that out. Now it's cut it in half. So you have a 50% reduction. There's not a whole lot else here that I like. Hemorrhage is kind of okay in certain situations. And I think this can be okay. But if you're looking to make the really big plays, I think if you're solo queue, then you're pretty much always going to be trying to go and single target damage. And that's what you got to do. If you have a duo partner and you're trying to play with Abathur, this is really good to be able to stay on top of people. The whole thing about reducing your Q damage means that you can open up E, Q, Q, E, and you can QQ some more. Just like the people that you're going to be killing, they're going to be QQing left and right. Post 16, the combo is actually going to change, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But reducing the energy cost means that you can queue for days, you can stay on to people, you can build up those points, and make you do a lot of damage in a very short amount of time. We're talking about hundreds of damage at level 1. Going into level 4, at this point, you're doing 3 Qs, you're opening up with your E, and then you're using your Eviscerate. And if we're talking about all of that, 255, base level 0 damage, 110 twice, plus your opener, and you're getting all of that in, it's a lot of damage. Level 7, that's right, we're there. Your Q, Sinister Strike now hits with both blades, dealing 125% additional damage, but its range is reduced by 1. That's okay because you're opening up onto that target. If I'm opening up onto that target with my E, they are silenced, which means that they can't do anything other than right click and walk away unless they're cleansed or shield movement speed, any of those things that can manipulate that situation. So I'm going to get onto somebody and I'm going to E onto them and then I'm going to Q onto them. Now my damage is a lot. Post level 7 is when Valeera has a huge power spike. That whole idea of pressing E, Q, Q, E, if now both of those Qs are doing 125% bonus damage, like things are looking pretty good. So a lot of this is now post level 7 when things for Valeera start to say, you know what, I have an impact because pre-level 7 Valeera is not so hot. Level 7 is when you do damage. It's really hard if you miss your Q, not only because it puts it on cooldown, but now it's got the range, and your opener is what sets you up, which is another reason why Crippling Poison can be really good. You can stay onto that target. That short range is very unforgiving outside of that very close melee range that you're opening up with. You need to be very quick on the buttons with what you're pressing. Everything else here, they're bad. They're really bad. Attack speed is bad. Quest is bad. Everything is bad. I don't even want to address the other talents because they're all that bad. Hemorrhage would probably be the only one that I would consider different than some of the other ones, but everything else is bad. Initiative, I have seen this picked at certain levels, and I think this is okay as well because it allows you to get in and get out, stay on people, but it's all about the Q build. Q at 4, Q at 7. Yeah, that's a pretty common theme. Level 10, Smoke Bomb versus Cloak of Shadows. Which one is better? Which one works? Which one doesn't work? Most of the time, Cloak of Shadows is going to be the one that you see the biggest plays made with. Why? Because it's a 15-second cooldown where I get 75 spell power spell armor for 1.5 seconds. And I get unstoppable. So if I have a 15-second unstoppable, that automatically is going to make this very good. Now, there is a time where Smoke Bomb's going to be okay. It's a 60-second cooldown. You can pass through other units, you get 30 armor, it reduces damage taken, and it makes it very hard to be targeted because you're in there. Abilities can still hit you, but you can't really be autoed, right? So it does make it a little bit easier to stand in this. This is good versus heavy auto attack teams that aren't really going to be dishing out a lot of spell damage and that just want to auto attack you to death. If I'm going against a pretty heavy melee team that has a gray main and they're diving in and they just want to auto attack me, smoke bomb's probably going to be better for me to fight in that situation. But because most of the time I spend a lot of time diving as a Valeera, I'm going to be diving that backline. Now, if they have double auto attackers, that's a whole different world, and I might consider smoke bomb. But getting in and then getting out is pretty paramount to the success that I'm going to have. So getting to the back line, using the spell armor and using the unstoppable so I can get in and out of there is what's going to help me a lot. This can help me mitigate a lot of damage. I can use this early. I don't want to use this when I open up unless I absolutely have to. Pre-cleansing myself is always going to be good if I need to. But using this so that I can get out, all of a sudden they turn their focus on me. I now have 75 spell armor, and that's going to make it a lot more difficult for you to do damage to me. I can eat things from those mages that are coming at me and get unstoppable. So that Jaina that wants to hit you with a blizzard and a big combo, boom, you sidestep it, you use your unstoppable, you walk out of it, you have your movement speed there, and you have 75 spell armor. So Jaina just wasted all of her abilities on you. So there's a lot of nuances to when and where you should pick Cloak of Shadows versus Smoke Bomb. But for all intents and purposes, Cloak of Shadows is going to be better most of the time. 13. Unless I'm going against a heavy auto attacker. Let's say it's a solo Zul'jin carry. It's a lot of situations, or an Illidan. I would consider opening up with blind. It doesn't do as much damage. It doesn't do as much of the things that I like for it to do. I'm going up against just heavy baseline auto, and my priority targets are auto attackers. Blind is going to be better, and I'm changing my combo to DW, which I might already be doing to begin with, but I'm going to do that. But Strangle is still better. Using Garrote on a hero reduces their spell power by 40% for 6 seconds. Now, let's think about that scenario that I just gave you. Jaina's going to just turn around and try and smash me. Well, guess what? I just opened up. They have an auto attacker on one side, and they have a mage on the other, which is pretty common right now. So if I open up on that target, they have spell power reduction for 6 seconds. My Cloak of Shadows is a 15-second cooldown, and I can have that. So if I can wear 75% of the spell damage after the Garrote is up, that's going to make me super tanky and super hard to kill. So there's a lot of things that go into this. Am I going against an auto attack team, or am I going against a mage team? If I'm going up against one auto attacker and one mage, normally Cloak of Shadows is going to be better, and Strangle is going to be better because I'm going to stay onto those priority targets and kill the squishies, and Strangle's always going to help me. Even the auto attackers have abilities that are going to hurt me. But if I'm going against a heavy auto attack team, a diving Greymane, a Raynor, an Illidan, some of those targets that need to be blinded, an Illidan, I will go blind, and I will be opening up with my DW as opposed to my DE. It just depends on the situation. You have to adapt to those. One of the reasons why Valeera can be really good or really bad. She can take care of one, but not necessarily the other. If I have Johanna on my team, I don't necessarily need the blinds, right? I can still go spell power. If I have an Anubarak on my team that's reducing spell power with his level 16 dive, I might go into blind reduction. There's a lot of different factors that you can take in if you really want to get to the nitty gritty, but I'm just trying to get you to think about why you're opening up with certain talents versus the others. If I'm always opening up with E, why would I go blind? And I'm never going Q. So, you know. Level 16, this is where things get really, really powerful. That whole thing that I was telling you about where you change your combo. Deal phase. Sinister Strike deals 50% additional damage. Yes, it did 125% there. And it generates an additional combo point when used against silenced, rooted, or stunned enemy heroes, which makes it really easy to open up with your own combo. So if I open up with my E, which let's just go into try mode real quick and we'll show you what we're talking about. So if we go in and we hit, we'll just set this to 12 so that we have an idea here. You can also see the cast range on my Q is very short now, but if I'm going to open up, and that's going to be my combo. You can see that I D'd, I E'd, I Q'd, I autoed, I Q'd, and autoed, and then I don't even have to auto after the second one, right? But the idea, you can see I just did 2,000 damage in no time at all. That's a lot of damage at level 4, right? So now if we change this to level 16, I guess the main thing that we need to focus on is your combo, right? So D, Q, you get 3 combo points, and then E. It's all about building the combo points. And that's the name of the game. So you can see I have to Q twice. So I open up with my E, which gives the first stack. We'll do this a little bit slower. First stack. You can see they last for a while. I Q. I Q. You can see it says 3 CP, so I have 3 combo points. Now, if we change this to later, let's say we're 18. So because that changes the dynamic of how you play, you're still going to go Q at 4, 7. We're going to open up with spell power. Now this changes it entirely. You're going to see that when I use my Q, I deal 50% additional damage and generate an additional combo point when used against silenced, rooted, or stunned enemy heroes. Since I'm opening up with my silence, or whatever I choose, normally silence, I'm going to be able to D, Q, or D, E, Q, E. And it's that easy. Because now I'm getting that additional combo point. So I get the 3 combo points very quickly. We look at our DPS. We did 1,200, 1,500 damage in half a second, right? This is what makes it very terrifying. And when you go back to the level 4 talent of reducing the energy cost, this is what it looks like if you stay onto somebody. Albeit this is very easy because they're not moving from me. So we'll open up. And so when I Q, they're still silenced, and then I combo again. And so we just did 7,800 damage in that short amount of time. Because everything lasts long enough, the silence on my E is going to help. 2.5 second silence, doing 284 damage over 7 seconds. Which means that when I E and I Q again, I guess I should do it from the side, I instantly get two combo points on 2 different Qs. Because the silence is long enough. And that's what makes Valeera post-level 7 scary. Post-level 16... terrifying. So you'll see that when I Q, I'm gonna E, I'm gonna Q, which gives me the 3 combo points. I'm gonna E. Then I'm gonna Q again while they're still silenced, so it puts me back up to 2 combo points. Then I'm gonna try and Q again and then E. As you can see, I get 2 combo points off that second Q. And so we're talking level 16, you're doing 3,000 damage to a squishy. It ain't pretty to anybody that's taking that damage. So 4,000 plus damage, 800 DPS in just 2 seconds flat. That's all that we're doing. 2 to 3 seconds, we've done 4,000 damage. If you've ever felt like a Valeera is on top of you and it's a miserable experience, that's why. He just does so much damage so fast. And it comes down to having the level 4 talent so I can Q that many times in a row, to getting the bonus damage since I'm staying on top of you. That's the name of the game anyways. And now at 16, this just raises my single target DPS by a wide margin. Getting that extra combo point means that I get 2 full E values in about 2.5 seconds, 3 seconds, making things very easy to be able to do that single target damage. If I miss my Q, good luck. You don't have much going for you, right? So that's why crippling poison can really help you stay onto somebody, or if your team has CC, can really help things out. The other talents just aren't the hot. Level 20, when it comes down to it, look, elusiveness is okay to get movement speed. If I did go Cloak of Shadows, whenever I use Vanish, I also gain Cloak of Shadows, which means I get the Spell Armor and the Unstoppable, which means I have a lot of ways to stay alive. If I went Spell Power Reduction, plus I have Spell Armor when I use this, and we're talking about an 8-second cooldown on this, I can manipulate those in a lot of different ways. It's kind of hard to go over all the different ways. I'm reducing spell power, so if that person's trying to kill me, good luck. You're reduced by 40%. Then I can also use my Unstoppable. And remember, we're talking about 6 seconds of spell power reduction. So 6 seconds, 1.5 seconds on my R, which now puts me at 7.5 seconds. And if I opened Invisible, that's on an 8-second cooldown. So I can rotate that again. And so that way, if I have 40% spell power reduction on that target that's trying to kill me, or anybody that's trying to kill me, then I R in the middle of that if they're still trying to kill me. So I'm unstoppable plus That's now 7.5 seconds of 40% damage reduction from one target, 75% spell armor reduction for another second and a half. That leaves me a half-second window to press D, potentially unstoppable again, and have another 75 spell armor. It doesn't always work like that. You have to adapt, and that's what makes her so hard to play, is that you don't just naturally open with your E, wait 6 seconds, press R, wait a half second, press D, and go again. That's not how it works. If I could do that every time, I would, but you have to adapt to your situation. You have to look for CC to know when to use that. That 6-second window, somebody might try and just power slide you and kill you. I'm pressing R to pre-cleanse as much as possible. So there's a lot of different things that go into that. So movement speed can be okay. Rupture can be okay. So increase Garrote's damage over time by 100%. The reason why this isn't normally picked is I just showed you in try mode. I'm trying to kill you fast. I'm going to try to kill you slow. And Garrote does damage over a long period of time. Not a super long time, but it's trying to do damage to you over time. I'm not trying to do damage to you over time. I'm trying to kill you instantly. That's why Rupture is not normally the pick here. It's not bad. Don't get me wrong. If I can just make sure and take one person out of the fight, they have an extra 100% damage from that Garrote on them, then yeah, it's going to be pretty punishing for them to stay alive. And I can just stay onto that single target and keep queuing. Normally, I should have enough damage, or my team should be working elsewhere to take care of other targets, and thus making Enveloping Shadows or Elusiveness a little better. I think Enveloping Shadows is normally the pick. Time ago, I think this used to give cooldown reduction, or one of these used to give cooldown reduction. It was very OP. Made some changes, but that's Valeera. It's very hard to work her in. She can solo lane, and it's not terrible. But if I went solo laner, tank, range damage, and a healer, where does Valeera fit in when she's not in the solo lane? Ganking is pretty obvious in the 4-man early game, although you're not really good till level 7. If I am drafting Valeera, I don't want to draft it alongside a tanky solo laner that doesn't do a lot of damage. As Valeera, I'm not out to top the charts. I'm here to gank somebody and get the heck out of there, or make life miserable, because if I'm trying to do all this damage, your health pool is actually remarkably high. It's one thing that a lot of people don't realize about Valeera. She has one of the highest health pools for a melee assassin. I think she has more health than a Nubrak even. I'd have to double check, but it's really high. It might be a little lower now, but for Valeera, you want to try and manipulate the situation in your favor as much as possible, but you're there to gank. And if you miss your Q and you miss your gank, it's pretty miserable to stay in a fight as Valeera, and it's almost impossible. Those are things you have to consider of, do they have counters to me? Are they just going to deal with me? Are they a bunch of tanky targets? Am I going to force that into a bunch of tanky targets? Am I just going to dive Ana all game and hope that I live? The other two ranged assassins might kill you before you can kill the Ana. You being out of the fight makes things to where it's like, I don't fit in my team. Valeera has to fit in the team, has to be able to do damage and do all of these things and hit your combos. You have to be high skill cap. You have to draft well. You have to do a lot of things to make Valeera work. And that's what makes her so hard, because she's all in or all out. And if you're all out, you do like 30,000 damage, 20,000 damage, and your team's like, man, I sure wish we had some damage from our fifth. And that's what makes her hard. The lack of consistency is so hard. But if you land your combos and you build her right, whew, that's a lot of headaches. And if you have a friend out there, run Abathur Valeera. Don't worry about going attack speed at 4, goes spike at level 4. Single target damage, almost nobody lives through that unless they're super beefy tank. You catch anybody out in rotation post level 4 and it's nasty. Try it out sometime. That's Valeera.